Good evening. 50 people have been arrested on a day of mass protest against plans for a new coal-fired plant at Kingsnorth in Kent. Environmental campaigners managed to break through the perimeter fence. Energy firm E.ON says it's been business as usual. Our Home Affairs correspondent Richard Smith is at Kingsnorth. Now, Richard, the protesters said they would close the plant down, but they haven't managed to do that, have they?
Well, no, they haven't, Rob. Hundreds of police officers were preparing for the worst as the protesters promised converge on the power station right here behind me via land, sea and air. Well, as it turns out, the air assault didn't happen at all. The action on sea was probably more dangerous to the protesters than it was to the site. But despite the very high security, small groups of protesters did still manage to break through the fence.
Careful you don't hit anyone else when you're taking the fence down.
Mid-morning at Kingsnorth, and these protesters at least achieved their goal of direct action. A few were arrested after breaking through the southwest corner of the outer fence, but there was more trouble in the River Medway. The much talked of rebel regatta was hardly the promised armada, and some vessels sailed straight into trouble. One homemade raft disintegrated before our eyes. The protesters were rescued by the crew of the boat hired by BBC South East. The campaigners' plan was to paddle their makeshift raft another mile downstream from where our boat found them to this point here, the jetty just off Kingsnorth Power Station. As you saw, things didn't turn out that way, but they didn't seem too concerned about the dangers.
This was, you could say, a bit of fun, but we were using it to highlight the very, very serious issue of climate change, which is going to affect millions and millions of people the world over.
Overall, the direct action was far smaller than many expected. Despite the break-in, E.ON said the plant is working as normal.
It was quite a small group of protesters. We think it was probably only around 20 who just got past that first level of security. But for suffice to say, everybody is safe and the power station remains fully operational.
Campaigners promised an iconic day of protest. It wasn't quite that, but they're likely to see the publicity generated as a success in itself. Well, the starting point for today's protest was the climate camp around 3 miles away from here. Hundreds of people took part in a mainly peaceful march from there over to here at Kingsnorth, and our environment correspondent Mark Norman was among them.
This was the only significant scuffle between protesters and the police in a march that lasted for more than 3 hours. The march has come to a halt along the A228 after a brief scuffle and at least one arrest. Protesters are saying to me they're determined this will be, though, a peaceful march.
Well, it seems that this is the only way that people get to see what's going on, because power is so far away from people, and people have to take control of their own lives, I think.
We want people to see that we're human, though, and not these evil monsters we're portrayed by some areas of the press, and especially by the police. We're just ordinary people with kids and families.
We believe that climate change can be stopped. There is time, but we need to act, and we need to act today.
Police eventually stopped the marchers just short of E.ON's main gate, but they had made their point for today. However, climate camp organisers now plan a rolling campaign of direct action protests if E.ON get permission to build the UK's first coal-fired power station for more than 2 decades. Mark Norman, BBC South East Today, Kingsnorth.
Well, late this afternoon, Kent Police held a news conference where they updated us on the number of arrests throughout the day.
We had 50 people arrested today, predominantly for obstructing the police. One was for assaulting a police officer, and there was another one for possession of a bladed implement.
So all in all, a day in which all 3 major players in this protest, the police, the protesters and E.ON, can claim some victories, but no doubt the debate about the climate camp is far from over.
Richard, thank you very much.